Let's learn the several ways Max allows us to set and remove keyframes. The first way we'll experiment with is using set key mode. This is a way more experienced animators would use, where you can go through and actually test out a pose. So let's say we wanted to bring our ship up, and if we didn't necessarily like that pose, all we'd need to do is simply scrub our time slider, and notice our ship goes back to its original path of action. Now, with this turned off, if we were to do the same thing, just raise our ship up, notice the ship is actually going to keep its offset. Its values are actually going to update. So you want to be very careful with this. But sometimes this can work out great if you plan to actually have an offset in your animation. I'm going to go ahead and undo that with Control Z. So go back to set key mode. Once we have decided that we'd like to set a keyframe, okay, let's say just moving our ship up in the Z axis. Once we have decided on this pose, we want to be mindful of a few things. One, that we're using the right default in and out tangency. In this case, if I wanted smooth interpolation, interpolation is basically the transition from key to key. And if I also wanted the ability to edit what is called tangent handles, to fine-tune the interpolation of the animation, I would use something like flat tangency or custom. I typically like to use flat tangency, and we're going to go ahead and understand what all of these settings are a little bit later on. But I'll go ahead and use the last option, which it should be by default set to. So once I've made sure of that, then we'd basically want to go to key filters and make sure that we're not creating any keys that we don't want. We basically in animation want to make sure we're animating as clean as we possibly can. That means if we don't need any scale, rotation, or even position keys, then we'd want to go ahead and toggle that off in our key filters to make sure that we're only setting the keys that we need. And in this case, we want to set position keys. So once we have decided on the keys we'd like to set, again, I've just checked off everything except for position. Now we can basically either use the big key button, we can click that, or use the hotkey K. Either way, now we have only position keys set. And notice now as we scrub through, now our ship is dodging the meteor. Great. Now we know that position keys have been set a number of ways. If we were to select our key and right click, we can go to this delete key menu here. And here's where we get to see all of the keys that make up this frame. So notice we have position X, Y, and Z keys here. Now in this case, we don't want any key in the Y or Z or X. Even though these poses here still keep their current value, at times we'd really want to offset our keys so we have some nice fluidity in our animation. So therefore, what we can do is actually click, in this case on the X position, and if we right click, go back to the delete key menu, notice X is no longer there. So now we can go to the Y position, and now we also have removed our Y position key, leaving only the Z. So again, we want to animate in a clean type of manner, and this is going to allow us to do that, the delete key menu from the track bar. If we like to delete all keys on this frame, we can use delete selected keys. If we like to delete transform groups, let's say all position keys or rotate or scale, we can use the first node at the top, position, or if it was rotation, we'd click on rotation and so on. Great, so we saw how we can create keys using set key mode and how we can delete keys from the track bar. Let's go ahead and take a look at another way we can set keyframes. I'm going to go ahead and right click on this key and delete it. Another way is to use auto key mode, and I actually prefer to use auto key mode because it allows us to go through and quickly set our keyframes by changes in our value. So in this case, if I were to, in auto key mode, just to raise the ship up in the Z, notice it already has a key there set for me. Okay, we're getting the same type of result, but only faster. So I would highly recommend to be more familiar with auto key mode, as it can save you time in your animations, which is something you want to shoot for. Great. And again, if we were to select the key with the left mouse button and right click, again we have just set position X, Y, and Z keys because of our key filter settings. So if we wanted to, we can now go to our X, remove that keyframe. We go to the Y and we remove that, and we're just left with the Z. Great. So once we have learned how we can set keyframes from our animation panel, let's go ahead and look at a way we can do that from the motion panel. Once you begin animating, you want to go ahead and move to this motion panel because this is where you're going to get to a lot of the settings you're going to use to edit and even create or delete keyframes. So we're going to focus primarily here on the PRS parameters all the way to our key info basic rollout. I'll go ahead and basically take this keyframe on 20 and delete it. We can go back there. So again, let's say if we wanted to set a keyframe. Under our PRS parameters rollout, PRS basically stands for our position or transform track, so that's position, rotation, and scale. Under this, notice we can create keyframes. We can even delete keyframes from here. And right underneath where we see position, rotation, and scale buttons, we can basically use this to show the contents of our keyframes. So this basically works in conjunction with the key info basic rollout underneath. But we'll get to that. So let's say on frame 20 I wanted to just set a keyframe. Notice something. If I were to move up in the position Z and click to add a position key, as I scrub, I'll notice that the key has been updated after I scrub. But notice the position hasn't been locked down at all. And notice, being that we already have position key set, this has been grayed out. Okay, we can access it. So how then would we change our value once we have used this route of creating keys? Well, what we could do is actually focus on our key info basic rollout. This is going to show us a lot of cool things. It's going to show us our keyframes. We can quickly navigate to by using these arrows. And the number here represents how many keyframes we currently have on this track. Now underneath what we have is the time that our keyframe lies on, so we could actually use this to change the time if we like. And you're wondering, by doing this, by moving this slider, how come we still have a key on frame 20 but we're able to move a keyframe here? Well, to understand this, we actually need to look at our position XYZ parameters rollout here. Notice it's currently selected on the Z-axis. Therefore, that key we were moving was only on the Z-axis. So this is the way we can really fine-tune what keys we're editing, by simply clicking the right axis. So again, you'd first choose the right controller, transform controller, position, rotation, or scale. Then you choose the axis from here. And then from there, you basically get to your keys information underneath for that specific axis. So going back to our Z-axis, making sure we're there, now if we like to raise this key up, we can simply go to the value parameter, and now notice as we just drag this up, we're able to change the position. And notice again, we have what we did before using auto key mode. Great. Now underneath, what we see here are these flyouts that basically allow us to change the in and out tangent types for our keyframes. And we're going to understand that more when we start talking about the curve editor. Great. Well, let's say if we wanted to remove a keyframe from our motion panel. This key on frame 40 is being rather problematic. So if we'd like to remove all position, rotation, or scale keys, we'd basically go to our delete key menu here. So on frame 40, we can go ahead and remove all these position keys that are causing us problems by simply going to our position button and clicking that under delete key. And now notice we get a better arc as this ship transitions from its start to finish. Wonderful. So we've just looked at ways we can create and even edit keys and delete keys in Max. And we have a few more ways we can take a look at here. But do get familiar with set key mode, auto key mode, and even the motion panel, because it's going to work out to your advantage to make sure your animations are going to be at the utmost quality. Well, that completes this lesson.